Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, was one of the most hyped movies ever. This can be seen in the film's gross, which is ginormous, yet it can also be clearly seen that Disney's Star Wars films afterwards show a declining trend. This shows that whatever hype the trilogy had died down fairly quickly. However, hype is something very important to a movie. A movie could be awful, but if it's hyped, then its day one attendance and ticket sales would make it a hit for the studio anyway, even if bad word of mouth kills its performance on subsequent weeks. All of the trailers for the Disney sequel trilogy have this in mind, and work hard to try and hype up the audience, and this actually worked on a lot of people. Let's have a closer look at these trailers, see what we can learn, and reflect on them long after the movies have been released. I'm looking at the comments on YouTube, and a lot of them say things like, "This trailer deserved a reward. They really had us think that Finn was going to be the main hero." Yep, a lot of us sure did. We'll talk more about that later. Looking at it, almost all the recent comments are pretty negative, talking about how hyped it got people, but how disappointing The Force Awakens and the entire sequel trilogy ended up becoming. Oh wow, there's a really cringy comment here. Wait, timing, delivery, ugh. Before the dark times, what a great comment. That really sums up how hopeful and optimistic a lot of people were when Disney announced they were going to make new Star Wars movies. When the sequels hadn't come out yet, and all we had was this trailer, we really thought that it was going to be a golden age of new Star Wars content. TV shows, movies, amusement park rides, anything. Slow, emotional, edgy piano music.
Who are you?
Desert planet.
I'm no one.
Rey nobody. This whole trilogy, Rey wants to be somebody, but that is her only stated goal. She doesn't have any expressed desire to do good, it's just that she wants to find out who she is and where she came from.
I was raised to do one thing, but I've got nothing to fight for.
And here, Finn looks like a really cool dude, and then in the movie he's a comic relief coward. There's jokes at his expense, etc.
I will finish what you started.
So he just said, "I'm going to finish what you started." Now we find out that Kylo Ren is actually Ben Solo. And why is he called Ben Solo? Because Luke knew Ben Kenobi, Leia and Han did not. Leia refers to him as Obi-Wan in a message for him, so why would they name him Ben? In the EU, Luke named his son Ben Skywalker, which makes way more sense. So when he says, "I will finish what you started," he does know that Anakin Skywalker, his grandfather, became Darth Vader and then went back to being Anakin. If he's finishing what Darth Vader started, surely that would mean throwing the Emperor down a bottomless pit? This whole thing immediately falls apart. Like what? Darth Vader, what was he trying to finish? Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, was a pawn of Darth Sidious for basically his whole life, even before being trapped in the suit. Finish what Darth Vader started, what the fuck does that mean? Immediately, I'm thrown off, and it's only a minute in. This is a big problem with the entire sequel trilogy. It doesn't understand what Anakin's story arc was. This scene with Poe, he tries trash-talking Kylo while he's torturing him, so it isn't the intense, moody, and dark scene that the trailer is painting it out to be. You compare it to the scene of the Empire threatening to torture Leia, she doesn't try cracking jokes or anything like that. The trailer was smart enough to cut the out-of-place jokes out. Epic shot of the Millennium Falcon. Now, people thought that it was Han Solo flying the Millennium Falcon, but instead it's Rey, who had never flown a ship before in her life. So, when people call Rey a Mary Sue, and many have done so since, well, she is one, they cite things like her flying the Falcon for the first time. She's better at it than Han Solo. She fights with a lightsaber for the first time and defeats a trained duelist. Luke Skywalker did blow up the Death Star, but he was already established as being a good pilot, and he had backup, and he had Obi-Wan guiding him. He just didn't do it all single-handedly, because he's awesome. The Alan Dean Foster novelization of the movie actually does try to explain some of this. Having Rey mention how she's flown different craft before, showing that she has trouble flying the Falcon and nearly crashes a few times, and flying in a place she knows well, while the TIE fighters are in unfamiliar territory. Unfortunately, this basic stuff to make the protagonist more human and relatable, and the stakes more intense, fail to show up in The Force Awakens. This stuff all looks great. This is what you would want a Star Wars movie to look like with modern special effects.
It's true.
Harrison Ford is back, hyperspace. This is all stuff you've seen before though. The trailer, well, Disney Star Wars as a whole, is full of ideas and imagery lifted from the original trilogy. Even Jakku, which isn't Tatooine, is clearly meant to evoke the similar desert imagery. Jakku is more interesting in the concept art, then it was turned into Tatooine 2.0. Then there was Pisana, which was Tatooine 3.0. And since California has deserts in it, and it's cheap to film there, Disney would just make tons of Star Wars series like Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, or Kenobi and just set them all in Tatooine. Knights of Ren. Here's the thing about the Knights of Ren. They do fuck all in the entire trilogy. They are useless, they don't contribute to the plot, they don't do anything to impact the story, they are just there to look cool in the trailer. X-Wings. I've said this before. I hate the slow, epic trailer music trend. It reeks of, oh, Halo did it once, so now every trailer must have the epic slowed down music. Every time I hear it, I cringe, I hate it. The shot of Luke with his hand on R2-D2. A lot of people are wondering, oh, what does this shot mean? It means nothing. It may as well have been filmed just for the trailer. This trailer doesn't tell us what role Luke or Leia will have, but it shows Han Solo was basically unchanged from the way he is at the start of A New Hope. I'll get to that point later. And that's the thing, they show Finn with the lightsaber as the Jedi hero. People would have loved a story arc where a stormtrooper becomes a Jedi, where he fights his programming and fights for good instead of evil. But the movie is afraid to commit to it. Soon after a very humanizing introduction to Finn, where he panics in a combat situation and his friend is killed, he's whooping and hollering while shooting and killing stormtroopers. Instead, Finn becomes a comic relief sidekick. It turns out that he was a janitor, there's jokes at his expense, including in this movie, but the trailer presents it as if he'll be this cool Jedi hero. I think it would have been more interesting if you had Finn as the Jedi hero, Poe as the hot-headed and charismatic pilot, and Rey was a mechanic, scavenger, and tinkerer. She'd be good at building and fixing things, and people could have accepted her as being a great mechanic and scavenger, but for her to be a great mechanic, scavenger, pilot, fighter, leader, and Jedi, epic music, then it quiets down, and then... This trailer was made to fit a formula. And no episode number either, because modern Hollywood hates numbered sequels. So the first 6 movies had numbers, then they got rid of them for this one. Ugh, what a shit show of a trailer. Love or hate the movie, you've got to admit that the trailer is amazing. Yeah, that can be true. There's a few comments saying things like that. I'm glad that there is a Star Wars trilogy for everyone. It's all about sharing happiness. I don't think kids like Disney Star Wars. They love the MCU and Fortnite and stuff like that. I mean, what is appealing about Star Wars to kids these days? They are heavily marketed to nostalgic adults. There are basically no video games anymore, while when I was a kid you had Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, Battlefront 1 and 2, the Rogue Squadron series, Republic Commando, the Revenge of the Sith game that was surprisingly good. It was a great time to be a kid and being into Star Wars. Nowadays you have the new Battlefront games, which went through a whole lot of controversy over how loot box ridden they were. And while you did get Fallen Order and the new LEGO Star Wars game, there's been a dearth of games over the last 10 years. And look at the toys. There are countless videos of people going into stores and pointing out racks of unsellable Disney Star Wars toys, since kids simply don't want them. Kids can tell when their heroes aren't heroic or appealing, and when a movie is bad. A couple of rip Carrie Fishers, yeah, rip. Remember when Star Wars fans were nice to each other? I don't remember such a time. As a kid, I was used to Gen X's and grown-ups and older people shitting all over the prequels and calling them awful. Us younger kids were wrong for enjoying them. It reminds me a lot of Nickelback. Nickelback was the band to hate on in the 2000s. You could trash them, make fun of them, and it was safe and non-controversial to do so. I've only seen this much anger from fans once before. It didn't scare me then, it does now. This and the last comment are implying that the fan reaction to seeing their beloved series and its characters shat on was unfair. It's definitely a fair reaction. This fucking movie intentionally irritates people. Rey offers Anakin's lightsaber to Luke, he tosses it. Snoke makes offers to Rey, he's killed with zero fanfare. Finn tries to make a heroic self-sacrifice, Rose stops him. And it was made by a hipster contrarian douchebag. Well, okay, alleged hipster contrarian douchebag.
When I found you, I saw raw.
Why are they walking on their knuckles? Oh god. It looks fearsome, and then you think about it for more than 5 seconds, and then you realize how dumb it is. Snoke. So people thought Snoke would mean something, and then the movie kills him off without explaining who he is or where he came from.
Something truly special.
I like this music more than the last trailer.
Inside me has always been there. But now it's awake. And I need help.
Rey is talking about how she needs help, and then in the movie Luke doesn't help her at all. So then she says, "No, I'll just help myself." Rey has a dark side cave moment, like Luke. But when Luke goes into the dark side cave, he is tempted and given a warning of what he could become. Rey goes into a cave and she meets copies of herself in a cool visual. There's no threat, there's no temptation. And also the warning Luke gets pays off when he confronts Darth Vader, gets his ass handed to him, and then learns that Vader is his father. The experience deeply affects him. Rey learns that she is a nobody, which is apparently the worst thing for her to hear, and is then hooping and hollering while shooting down TIE fighters like the next scene. She doesn't seem that affected by it at all. Also, on the Rey nobody thing, Rey isn't going around in The Force Awakens thinking that she was related to someone important. She just wanted to know who her parents were and who she was, and why she was left on Jakku. She should be more affected by her parents abandoning her, but she seems to care more about them being famous or not. It ties into Rian Johnson's massive misunderstanding of Star Wars and his gleeful efforts to kill off the idea of family legacy. Like the bold and innovative idea of the Force not belonging to the Skywalkers, exemplified with Broom Boy, but every Jedi before the Skywalkers were not Skywalkers. They never owned it. It's a misunderstanding.
Hear me enough then. It does now.
Let the past die. Kill it. If you have to.
The intent from the movie, and from Rian Johnson, is that Kylo Ren is wrong when he is saying this. It's similar to Luke saying that the Jedi should end. He realizes that he is wrong, and he even tells Kylo that he won't be the last Jedi. He says kill the past, but the movie says that no, that's the wrong thing to do, you should not kill the past. But a lot of fans of this movie saw this and thought it was this amazing edgy line, a mission statement.
That's the only way to become what you were meant to be.
The movie tries to show that there's a conflict between Kylo and Leia, but he's evil the whole trilogy. In The Force Awakens, he says that he doesn't think he can do what he should, and he ends up murdering his own father. He's a dickhead the whole trilogy until he forgives himself. It's not a Force ghost that shows up in Rise of Skywalker, it's a memory. He forgives himself. I don't mind the porgs. They're fine.
It'll light the fire, it'll burn the First Order down.
That's not a good line. They set up this epic conflict or rivalry between Finn and Phasma, but Phasma doesn't do anything. She has no character. This feud between Finn and Phasma doesn't lead anywhere. They cast Gwendolyn Christie because she's in Game of Thrones, and then give her nothing to do. Phasma has 4 minutes of total screen time in her 2 movies. Some rivalry, huh?
This is not going to go
Rip off Hoth.
the way you think. Fulfill.
They cut to Finn with a somber expression while wearing a First Order uniform, and Snoke says, "Fulfill your destiny." They clearly want you to think that he defects back to the First Order. It reminds me of Silver Age comic covers where they take an out of context scene in order to make the most attention-grabbing cover, and then the actual scene in the story is way more mundane. In the movie, he's on an undercover mission to infiltrate the First Order.
Destiny.
Both this trailer and the last one end with epic build-up and then black screen and piano. They're working off a fucking formula.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
And here's the thing. It's totally fine to have a main character who doesn't know of their origins, who wants to learn who or what they are. But they need to have other concerns that cause them to be involved in the plot. Rey has no reason to be involved in the conflict between the First Order and the Resistance except for when she gets shot at. She just bounces along from scene to scene because she's one of the good guys. She doesn't have a moment where she says, "I will fight for what's right, I see injustice, and I will end it." She just wants to know who she is. A lot of people were wondering if she would have accepted Kylo Ren's offer to join him in the dark side, or even to create something new. And that's terrible for a main character because you don't know what her goals or motivations are. You look at Link in Breath of the Wild, the game that I love. When the game begins, he's an amnesiac with no backstory. He is then told, there's this evil called Calamity Ganon, and you need to save the world and save Princess Zelda. And he does it. He doesn't even hesitate. He does what's right and sets off to save the world. Recovering his memories is a secondary priority, and you can beat the game without getting any of them. Rey should have said, "I am going to fight the First Order because they are killing and enslaving people. I would also like to learn who my parents are and why I was left on Jakku." And you never get that sense. In all of the sequel movies, Rey isn't making proactive choices. She just goes places she's told to go to by other characters and reacts to their offers and decisions. Her not really having a motivation is yet another sign of how weak and shallow her character is. Confused Rey alone nonsense. This trailer wasn't as bad. It does present that Luke will be a helpful Jedi Master, but if you watched The Force Awakens, you'd be wondering, well, hang on, how come Luke abandoned his friends in the galaxy? How come Luke wasn't here trying to make things right? Luke's nephew is evil and he's done nothing to stop it? A lot of people like to blame The Last Jedi for ruining Luke Skywalker, but really, what choice does this movie have? This movie had to explain why Luke Skywalker hadn't stepped in to help, why he hadn't helped for years, and what he was doing on his island. I don't think there really is a satisfactory answer, since he abandoned his friends and loved ones and the galaxy. Even if he was at his temple training new Jedi, he didn't tell anyone how to get to him, and he still didn't help his friends when they needed him. And did you notice who isn't in the trailer? That's right, Rose Tico. A character that Rian Johnson admitted that he wanted to feel out of place in a Star Wars movie is not in the trailer to this Star Wars movie. Something else I noticed in this trailer is that while the trailer presents a dark, serious Star Wars movie, the movie itself is full of out-of-place humor, misdirections, subversion, and characters talking about themes and important issues. My favorite being when Rose lectures a former child slave about how evil slavery is, and he just sits there and takes it. None of that stuff is in the trailer, so people went into theaters expecting a very different movie to the one that they got. Man, some of these comments. This is hands down one of the best trailers ever. It captures how important the saga is, and I'm glad I was alive to witness its end. Well, I'm glad this trilogy is over, and I'm glad I can rewatch the George Lucas movies, but I don't think this trailer captures how important the saga is. The Star Wars movies were some of the biggest icons of American, even world culture. The sequel trilogy are shallow cash grabs made by a soulless corporation that would have Walt Disney spinning in his grave. The saga will end, but the story will live forever. Yeah, the story of the first 6 movies, maybe. Taking one last look, sir, at my friends. These words always make me cry. I've seen a really funny meme where he says that, and he's holding up a picture of the cast of the originals. So he's looking at a picture of his real friends. It's funny because it's true. I also realize now that this also feels like a very meta line. C-3PO is getting one last look at his friends, and the audience is getting one last look at the characters in the Skywalker saga. By the way, Skywalker saga was a made-up term created during the marketing for Rise of Skywalker, in order to make the sequels seem like a continuation, or sequel, to the entire Star Wars series.
It's an instinct. A feeling.
Also, Rey is training now, when she was already doing incredible things without any training in the other sequels. She's strong enough to lift boulders effortlessly with her mind. She needs training now, and that's very clearly a reaction from J.J. Abrams. Like, shit! People are pointing out that she's doing these incredible things without training. Quick! Show scenes of her training. That'll throw off the criticism, even though we've already seen her do impossible things.
The Force brought us together. We're not alone.
He says, we're not alone, but in The Last Jedi they ask for help and no one comes, and the entire Resistance, or what's left of it, fits inside the Millennium Falcon when they make their escape. However, in this movie, Lando asks for help and it looks like half the galaxy shows up to help out. The lack of consistent world building is one of the biggest flaws of Disney Star Wars. It feels like there's no rules and they just make up shit as they go along. Probably because they do. And there's Rose Tico, who's barely in the movie. After all the arguing over whether or not she was a good character, she gets completely sidelined in this movie. The sequel trilogy movies all ignore their predecessors' plotlines for new ideas. The Force Awakens ignores Return of the Jedi by resetting the galaxy to a Rebels vs Empire conflict and undoing the hero's accomplishments. The Last Jedi ignores The Force Awakens by completely throwing away Snoke and ignoring hints of Rey's heritage by revealing her to be a nobody. And then finally, Rise of Skywalker ignores The Last Jedi by completely throwing away Rose Tico, and then revealing that, nah, Rey actually is super important, she's actually a Palpatine.
Good people will fight if we lead them.
People keep telling me they know me. No one does.
Every expression Daisy Ridley has looks like that triangle. People say, oh, this trilogy, it wasted the talents of so many good actors. And yeah, that's true for some of them, but Daisy Ridley, I don't know. Nothing I see in these 3 movies convinces me that she's a good actress. I'm sure there's other stuff she does where her acting is a lot better, I'm just saying in these 3 movies. And I don't blame her, her character has nothing. I strongly doubt that if you asked her, she'd be able to tell you what Rey's motivations are, or her personality, her likes and dislikes.
But I do.
Daisy Ridley is the one who has to take the fall for the horrible writing from Disney. And a bloody fish mouth.
Long have I waited.
The Dark Empire trilogy, a comic storyline from the old EU, is still hotly debated over whether it should or shouldn't have been taken seriously as part of the canon. The plot, set a few years after Return of the Jedi, has Palpatine return via possessing clones of himself. The series has a lot of positives to it, showing the beginnings of the new Jedi Order and setting up many future stories. but it was also published before the prequel trilogy, which revealed the Chosen One prophecy that Anakin would destroy the Sith, something that clearly doesn't happen if Palpatine comes back from the dead. It was said that the Emperor coming back from the dead is an undoing of the sacrifice Anakin made, while it also argued that the resurrection is a cheap Pandora's box that opens up the possibilities of other dead characters coming back, and isn't good storytelling. This is the same comic that brings Boba Fett back from the dead too, with the only explanation being that the Sarlacc found him indigestible. Many maligned Dark Empire for bringing back Palpatine from the dead, and I've heard that people were celebrating the canon Legends split, where all Star Wars EU content before 2014 was declared Legends, and all new content canon, partially because now Dark Empire could be ignored. I couldn't actually find any articles saying that, but it's what I've heard. Anyway, irony of ironies, the controversial plot of Dark Empire, a comic I actually like despite its issues, would be repurposed for Rise of Skywalker, with Palpatine's return from the dead. Unlike in Dark Empire, where Palpatine's return was explained via cloning, the movie doesn't offer an explanation. Rey even hears Anakin's voice say, "Bring balance to the Force, as I once did," meaning that Anakin did fulfill his prophecy, which makes no sense since Palpatine is alive again. It's a giant mountain of bullshit created by bad writing and trying to make these big budget movies on the fly with little planning. It's also extra sad that Disney ripped off Dark Empire while this writer, Tom Veitch, who noted the similarities to his own work, passed away, and Disney tried to avoid paying him royalties for his Star Wars work to him and his estate. Disney has done this to other EU creators like Alan Dean Foster, and it's sickening that a company so massive that makes so much money can treat people so poorly. Never forget that Disney loves to lecture people on politics or good behavior or good morals, yet treats people so terribly. Anyway, back to the trailers. They try to act like Palpatine coming back from the dead was some masterstroke that ties the three trilogies together. It was a last-minute arse pull that wasn't established in any of the 8 previous movies, in the quote-unquote Skywalker saga, and one Disney was forced to make after Snoke was killed off in The Last Jedi, unceremoniously in the chaotic, disorganized, and unplanned production of this trilogy. This isn't just a bad plan, it's a lack of a plan. The trailer doesn't explain how Palpatine returned, and the movie doesn't either. The movie doesn't even depict the broadcast of his message for the galaxy, but don't worry, you can check it out in fucking Fortnite.
And now,
The Star Destroyers rising out of the ground reminds me a lot of the Enterprise rising out of the ocean in Star Trek Into Darkness, which J.J. Abrams also directed and ruined. Both scenes make no sense in the movie. Why would the Star Destroyers be in the ground? Why would the Enterprise hide underwater? Both shots only exist to be mind-blowing and amazeballs in the trailer.
you're coming together.
Rey does everything in this trilogy. The best fighter pilot in the Resistance is standing right behind her, watching her fly. Poe was meant to die in The Force Awakens, and they decided on the fly to keep him alive, and that meant they had to look for things for him to do in the rest of the trilogy. Oh my god, I am not making this up. This is from the Rise of Skywalker Facebook group. I showed this meme to you earlier. Well, here it is, posted by the official Facebook group unironically. They are actually proud of the fact that Rey steals all the spotlight from the other characters. The comments are roasting them, it's pretty funny.
Is your
Also, Rey can sail a boat when she grew up on a desert planet, and got excited when she felt rain for the first time.
Taking one last look, sir, at my friends.
His friends, quotation marks, are people he barely knows who treat him like shit and don't seem to care about his well-being at all. They insult him and tell him to shut up, instead of putting up with his annoying habits like the characters in the prequels and the originals. They don't even hesitate when they realize they need to erase his memories to help them find Exegol. These clowns aren't his friends. By the way, the sacrifice he makes, losing his memories, is undone later by R2-D2 restoring them. so it's meaningless. The same happens with Chewbacca's fake-out death too. These movies are afraid of sincerity. Gunning down stormtroopers with ease, no drama, no stakes. Carrie Fisher's likeness. Billy D. Riding horses on the fucking ship. Ugh. The story lives forever. Well, it will, but not because of anything Disney made. Slow down epic music.
The Force will be with you.
Always.
And watching this trailer, you'd think, well, how is Skywalker rising? Luke is dead, and Leia's surname is Organa. There are no more Skywalkers. And then Rey just calls herself Rey Skywalker by the end. It pains me seeing the Wikipedia article calls her that. She kills Palpatine after Palpatine says, "Kill me so I can possess you." And then she kills him, is fine, and then buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers on Tatooine, a planet that they hate. Luke never wanted to go back to Tatooine, and only went there to rescue Han from Jabba. Leia's experience of Tatooine has been kidnapped by a slug, stripped naked, and forced to wear a bikini. Both of these people would hate this planet, so the title makes no sense. By the way, in classic Star Wars, Leia chokes out Jabba the Hutt after he acts creepy and abusive to her, while Rey kisses Kylo Ren, someone who tried killing her, tried entering her mind without her consent, and acts controlling and violent to her, all to appease weirdo Raylers on the internet. It would make way more sense for Rey to call herself Rey Solo, since she was much closer to Han while he was alive than she was to Luke, who was pretty rude to her, and also because she loves Ben Solo. I'll also go over the teaser trailers, which for the most part are actually a lot better. They have less of the cringy music that I hate. It's more of a tone thing. It just shows you what sorts of things you'll expect to see on like a visual level. I think they do a lot better job, honestly. The other trailers are just full of bullshit that I can like decipher and point out how flawed they are. It's weird because the teasers for The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi open with like jump scares. This second Force Awakens teaser has two really bullshit lines I want to go over. So the first one is, "Chewie, we're home."
Chewie, we're home.
The line, "Chewie, we're home," is actually kind of a mini disaster in of itself, and like an air crash, can be very short but be deconstructed and taken apart for a very long time. It's very meta. Han, like the OT fans, hasn't seen the Millennium Falcon in a long time.
What a piece of junk!
It reminds me of the movie Never Say Never Again, an unofficial James Bond movie that was made due to arguments over the rights to the book Thunderball. Sean Connery comes back as Bond after a lengthy absence, and the movie is full of lines metaphorically jerking Sean Connery off about how amazing he is, and how they don't make them like they used to.
My word, they don't make them like this anymore.
Right. It's still in pretty good shape.
Good to see you, Mr. Bond. Things have been awfully dull round here. Now you're on this. I hope we're going to have some gratuitous sex and violence.
I certainly hope so, too.
Only to plead for your return, sir. M says that without you in the service, he fears for the security of the civilized world.
Never again.
Never?
Never, never say never again. Never, never say never again.
Connery is okay, but did he ever throw a guy into a printing press and then say this?
They'll print anything these days.
I don't think so. Han and Chewie haven't seen the Falcon in a long time, just like the audience. This, however, becomes fatal to the story of the sequels. The mythical characters such as Luke, Leia, and Han, as well as the Millennium Falcon, have been absent for 30 years. So the trilogy has a plot where these elements have also been missing for a long time. On top of this, the movie doesn't even explain how Han lost the Falcon. That was left to a comic book, which revealed that they literally gave the keys to someone thinking that he was a valet, who promptly flew off with it. That's it. The member berries are strong in The Force Awakens, with Han being unchanged from how he is in A New Hope, undoing his growth across the entire original trilogy. Now he's back to square one, solely so a recognizable character in a trailer can say a line about being home.
The Force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. My sister has it. You have that power too.
Like, this clearly was meant to foreshadow Rey being connected to Luke, which, and then The Last Jedi shits all over it, and people were like, oh, why did you have these fan theories? Why did you think Rey was related to Luke? The Last Jedi teaser trailer has this shot where it's Finn in his, like, Bacta suit, and it makes it look really cool, but it's actually, like, to make a laughing stock out of him.
What do you see?
Light, darkness, a balance.
Also, this line here is bullshit. Balance to the Force is not equal light and dark. That's like something out of a bad fanfic. I'm equal evil and good. It's like, no. Evil existing is what throws the Force out of balance. The prophecy of the Chosen One is that the Chosen One would restore balance to the Force by destroying the Sith.
Is he not to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force?
So the prophecy says.
It's not, oh, the Sith have killed all but 2 of the Jedi, so there's 2 Jedi and 2 Sith. That was never the case. This idea of Rey representing the light and Kylo representing the dark and teaming up to create something new is ridiculous and shows how little they understand Star Wars. And the other thing you gotta remember is that it's never actually called the light side in, like, the movies up until the sequels. Calling it the light side, you may have seen it in the expanded universe every now and then, but it was never shown by George Lucas to mean that there was a light side and a dark side. There's the Force as it should be, and then the Force corrupted. To be pulled towards the light is an inherently ridiculous premise. You're tempted by darkness and the easy, quick path and giving into your emotions. You're not tempted by being humble and self-sacrificing. It's absurd. It clearly shows that there's a big disconnect between the writing of the earlier movies and the writing of the sequels. The fucking Rise of Skywalker teaser, that one's really bad. It has that opening shot of Rey dodging the TIE fighter. I love it, because it's like people see this relationship she has with Kylo and think, oh yeah, they should be a couple. Also, it shows a wood planet that turns out to be fucking Mustafar, which looks like this, and General Grievous calls a volcanic planet. And it ends with the Palpatine laugh, which, yeah, the Rise of Skywalker teaser's pretty bad. The ones for Force Awakens and The Last Jedi are way better. The Star Wars sequel trilogy are movies emblematic of the 2010s. A giant corporation acquired an important part of world culture and twisted and ruined it for a quick buck. The characters from the originals that people love ended up being failures whose accomplishments led to nothing. It's these new characters, created to fill points on a checklist, that really matter. The stories for all 3 movies were created by coming up with a series of cool scenes you wanted to make, and then afterwards piece together a shell of a story to connect the scenes. I said this in my video about James Cameron's sequels, how Terminator 3 felt like a movie made by a cargo cult. Well, the same thing applies here, especially to The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker. The sequel trilogy feels like it's made by Pacific Islanders who saw the original trilogy a long time ago and worship a memory of it, while not understanding how it functioned or what made the magic happen. So they tried recreating the visuals and the basic plot while not recreating any of the underlying effort, thought, creativity, or passion that went into the original or prequel trilogies. The trailers also bring up things I brought up earlier, like bringing balance to the Force and Darth Vader's helmet and Kylo wanting to finish what he started, that show that even from the get-go you can tell that these movies are made by people that don't understand Star Wars. What I wanted to demonstrate is that the trailers for each sequel trilogy film are misleading, deceptive, and fail to convey what the movie will be like. Instead, they show big set pieces and things we've seen in the original trilogy movies before, and raise further questions in a pandering, nostalgia bait-laden special effects show-off. Rewatching these trailers with the benefit of hindsight is therefore a frustrating and disappointing experience, much like watching the Star Wars sequel trilogy.